McClures was an immigrant, Irish immigrant. Came here at an early age. His mother had raised the family. The father died early, and he was a very bright guy and a very hard worker. And from what I can gather, essentially worked his way through the college with little financial help. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, well, I think Professor Hurd had questions about McClures. An energetic guy, maybe not too stable in some ways, and not who Hurd had in mind for his daughter to marry.
Right. In a little Anglo-American xenophobia. And
yeah, all that.
Right,
and yeah, and I don't know anything about McClures' religious leanings, but you know, he probably was raised in a Catholic environment. But no, I've never known of him to have affiliated with churches. So anyway, Hurd was not pleased. They said on the wedding day that Hurd was in a foul mood, and he had some wedding cake on his plate, but he just kind of pushed it around with his fork. And then afterwards he was mad because curious onlookers were peeking in his windows. They'd trampled all of his flowers. So he had a bad day. Yeah, it was tough. But anyway, McClures went on to do pretty well financially. Eventually it folded, but they had a good run. They had good years. One time, it is sad, and I don't have the numbers, but it was said that McClures magazine was in more households in America than any other magazine.
Wow.
You know, and that's saying something, because you know, a lot of these early magazines were agrarian, right, and farmers subscribed to them, and all the farmhouses would have 2 or 3 of them. Harriet Hurd McClures, and mentioned that she's the daughter of Professor Albert Hurd and Eleanor Pinnock Hurd. Now, you can see below that, she died first. Hurd probably put that monument up, making a point of daughter and saying nothing about her marriage. And then later, someone came along and inscribed Samuel S. McClures.
They're clearly in different styles.
Absolutely. Much later.
Fascinating.
Yeah, much later.
And not as nice, I noticed.
No, not as deep and not as sharp. Yeah, and McClures' magazine had folded. He was penniless. You know, I don't want everybody to think he was a failure, because you know, he did so much that changed. Willa Cather got her start writing for McClures magazine.
Oh, wow.
You know, I mean, they were the muckrakers. You've heard of the muckrakers? Well, that's McClures. There's a lot to be said about McClures. Born in Ireland in 1857, came to America as a boy and lived in poverty. He worked his way through Knox College. He might have been a prodigy, since he is listed as being a Knox College faculty member even before he received his degree in 1882. He had been very active in student publications while at Knox, and landed a job with the Wheelman magazine at a time when there was so much excitement about bicycles. So he was into that. It was practically a frenzy for bicycling, at least in certain circles.
Yeah.
In 1883, Harriet Hurd and Samuel McClures were married. She was the daughter of Professor Albert Hurd, and he was terribly displeased about their marriage. She graduated 5 years earlier in the Knox class of 1877. Their friends referred to them as Sam and Hattie. From there, they went to Century magazine, a leading publication that was received in many households and known for high journalistic standards. But McClures was now apparent Sam was not suited for working for others, and I'm sure that would have been the case, too independent. So around that time, McClures got the idea of syndicating the news. So he actually is the first guy who comes up with the idea of syndicated news in this country. The idea was syndicating the news. It could be sold to several publications at a relatively low fee, instead of just being purchased by one at a relatively high fee. He launched McClures Syndicate in 1884, and so much happened in just 2 years after graduating from Knox College. Many McClures Syndicate articles appeared in Sunday newspapers. Among authors promoted by McClures Syndicate was Rudyard Kipling. It's a bit uncertain when Hattie started working along with Sam in the publishing business, but we know she did, and she offered some stability to the business enterprises.
Lewis erratic.
Yeah. 1893, McClure used the syndicate for a base and began publishing McClure's magazine.
Yeah.
This magazine published the works of newer writers, including Jack London, O. Henry, and later Willa Cather. In 1903, an issue of McClure's included articles by Lincoln Steffens on municipal corruption, Ida Tarbell on Standard Oil, and Ray Standard Baker on the struggle of labor. This issue is considered the birth of muckraking. So he's really a mover and shaker.
Publishing Ida Tarbell.
Yeah, so even though he ends up broke at the end, don't ever think of him as a failure. He did a lot. He really did. Anyway, to put it mildly, McClure was not averse to risk. That's putting it mildly. He was not averse to risk. And he never did have his finances under control. But it never bothered him. He had an idea, he was going to pursue the idea, and the money would just work itself out. And if it didn't, it didn't. He was just a very interesting guy. In 1906, many of McClure's best people left him, including Steffens and Tarbell, and his friend since the publishing associate at Knox College, John Sanborn Phillips, another Knox alum who was involved with McClure up to that point. Willa Cather and some others stayed with Sam and Hattie McClure. McClure abandoned his editorial work in 1914. He was described as tired and temperamental. So, but think of his life. He was worn out. All he had to do, he's born in poverty, he works his way through college, he's somewhat of a prodigy and everything, you know, and an innovator in the publishing business. So he was always living on the edge financially in all those years. Hattie died in 1929. I often wonder, you know, about well, she died before the crash of 29, so it wasn't the crash, but I'm sure it took a toll on her. If she's a sensible, you know, kind of reasonable person who's more concerned about security, and she's married to a guy who's not, you know, it had to be tough for her.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was buried then on this family plot. Professor Albert Hurd, he's over here, we'll talk about him in a minute. And then McClure went on into obscurity and died in 1949 and was buried with his wife. So anyway, that's, I think he's one of the more interesting alums.
Yeah.
Yeah.